the idea is to start reflecting, now that we have established that we have to move towards a human-centric deployment of technology at the workplace. What does what does it mean to have a human command approach to AI in the workplace? I mean, of course, we start from the idea that having a computer in command can lead to disastrous outcomes. You will all remember the Lion Air tragedy of actually almost 6 years ago, where basically a program in an airplane decided at some point to send the plane nosediving, and there was no way. So the pilots tried to fight with this program for 11 minutes, and at any time they managed to like set the course of the plane correctly, the program nosedived again until when actually the plane crashed. So we all understand why we don't want computer in command. And again, the idea of human in command is something that has been advocated and is now a principle that is it has been adopted in various ways in several regulation and legislation in the EU, including notably the AI Act, the Machinery Regulation, and the Platform Work Directive. The idea of a human in command is that humans always will have or should have the ability to oversee and actually correct the course of an AI system. And an example of AI, of a human in command provision is in Article 14 of the AI Act. And this article, basically, you can read it, everyone, and basically the idea is that there should always be a natural person when AI is deployed, including at work, because this regulation in this article speaks about high-risk AI systems, and those include, according to the AI Act, also the ones that manage workers. Well, there should be someone that has the ability and authority to disregard what the system is doing, and also to stop the operation of the system with a sort of like stop button, which also gives you the idea that the people who wrote this thing have absolutely zero idea of how AI work, because if you think that you can have a stop button and then the AI stops working immediately, you really don't know what you're doing. But the problem here is not only that we may think that these people don't know what they were doing, but also if we apply this to the workplace, you can realize that these people also don't have idea or any idea on how work is done and how workplace work. Because the problem here is that, and this is something that you can also find in the Platform Work Directive actually, that there should be someone, an unidentified person in the system that has the power to stop the system. But the problem is that, as we all know, this person will not be the only worker in that workplace, and a lot of people will have to interact with the AI, and they won't be in the condition, because the regulation or the directive don't acknowledge and don't mandate for this, to actually interact in a meaningful way with the AI. So what this regulation is ignoring is that when we are at work, when we are in an employment setting, when we say command, we always have to ask ourselves what command means and who is in command, because an employment or an employment contract always gives someone the ability to command over others, and those others, the employees, don't have the ability to question those orders. In general, the law assumes that orders are lawful and legitimate, and the employer makes rational choices, and employees don't have a power, don't have a right to question the rationality of those choices and orders. Especially, they don't have the ability to do that immediately and just to refrain from working, unless we are in extreme conditions when they can claim that something can result in immediate danger for their life, and so they can remove themselves in some cases from that situation. But other than that, a person, a worker, an employee does not have the ability, does not have authority to say, well, I don't think this is actually a good idea, and I don't think that I should do what the system is telling me to do. The problem here is that we, the people who write these laws, don't understand that the technology acts as the technological harm, the technological arm of management. And again, you don't have a right to resist management. So if you get an order from a computer, you have to follow it, unless you can actually claim that this order is going to put you in immediate danger for your life or health. So these are the problems that we see when this idea of human in command is included in relations of power, and the relations of authority actually are such where somebody always has to follow the authority of someone else and the orders of someone else, be that human or a machine. Now, we claim that there are some preconditions to have a meaningful human in command approach at work. The first one is a technological precondition. The system must allow people to stop it, which is not a secondary thing, and is not actually something that can be taken for granted. The technology is rarely built in a way that people that interact with it can actually stop it from operating. And again, the idea that just a random overseer that basically you never meet can do it on your behalf is something that, again, in the workplace doesn't actually work. Agnosological condition, you must be, first of all, you need to be aware that the system is operating, which is something that many people don't know. The pilots of the plane didn't know that the system was actually there. And once you know that it's there, you have to be put in the condition, in the knowledge condition, to be able to put the system at a stop. You need to have robust rights to resist employer authority. The ability to say, I'm not going to execute this thing because the computer is telling me something that I shouldn't do. And if you want to have that at the workplace, you need to be protected also in your employment, because if you get fired, if you get disciplined, because you refuse to act on at the behest of a computer, then you don't have actually any authority, any possibility to remove yourself from that potential situation of harm. And we are moving in a direction, unfortunately, in the last 40 years, in which the right not to be dismissed unfairly has been eroded already for, again, several decades. I mean, it has never been a thing in many countries, but in European countries, it was a thing that has been stripped away in a meaningful way in the last decades. You need to have, and this goes back to what Jeannie was discussing, a sort of collective way to react to these things, but also, and we will get there in a second, a way to prevent certain systems to be put in place without, again, the knowledge, without the possibility to stop them, and without giving workers a certain authority to basically resist to the commands of computer. And then, of course, we need to have, especially where collective agreements and the trade unions don't arrive, and small, medium enterprises are an example, but there are many other places. The platforms are another example in which you don't have meaningful unionization. Then you need to have strong legislation and strong authority for labor inspectorates to substitute, to replace the collective oversight of this system. So I'm time aware. Okay. I just want to show you, first of all, you see that my slides are also a masterpiece. They are absolutely. But so the what we have insisted for many years now, and again, the special issue with Professor Dolgas is part of that effort, is to bring to the fore the idea that we cannot have ex post control on these things. Once the technology is in place, it's very difficult to remove the technology. We need to have control that are ex ante. Certain technologies should not be deployed, and they should not be deployed especially if you don't speak with the people that have to interact with the technology, because those are the ones that know how the job is done. In many cases, management hasn't the faintest idea of how a certain job is done. And I mean, you can think of an example of a sort of algorithmic management system that the New York Times published an article a couple of years ago, basically where doctors in medical hospitals they were considered by the system not to be at work when they were speaking with patients because they were not at their computers. So the computers thought that the doctors were slacking off because they were not working at the computer. Of course, whoever decided to implant this system in a hospital didn't have, again, the faintest idea of how the job of a doctor actually is and how it works. So we need to have a sort of bottom-up approach to this that, again, and also that this connects well with Anna's, with Professor Johnson's presentation on collective bargaining clauses. Yes, thank you. But I think that another essential element to get to any meaningful application of the human in command approach is a different way of understanding the role of technology in society and at work. For the moment, all these acts that I have discussed, the AI directive, the AI regulation, the managerial regulation, the platform work directive, always start from the assumption that the technology is there, is available, and thus it should be allowed to operate, which is a very technocentric approach to regulation. The technology should only be deployed if you actually can show that it's safe and it can lead to better productivity. And there is no way you can determine that without consulting with the workers that have to apply and deploy the technology. And the other thing that I think we have to start thinking about, one of the ways in which the technology is operated and deployed is because the technology is assumed to be part of the managerial prerogative of employers. So the employers have managerial prerogatives over the workplace, and the technology is part of it. So they don't have to ask permission to deploy a certain technology. Well, our argument is that all these ideas about managerial prerogatives concerning technology were adopted, were created by lawyers, by courts, by lawmakers in an era in which technology had to do with goods and items. It didn't have to do with people. This technology is a technology that immediately affects people. It's not an assembly line. It doesn't make the production of a certain good more effective. It makes people work in a certain way. We cannot use the same legal framework. We cannot root and use the same sort of legal principle that applies to good to managerial prerogatives that impact on people. So we have to basically go back and start from the scratch and say, well, do you really have a managerial prerogative to introduce a technology at work if that technology is not operating on goods, but is directly operating against people? And in my opinion, those previous ideas around managerial prerogatives, around technology, are in a way, they need to be updated to face with the new reality of the technology at work. Thank you very much.